Welcome to RetroLogic. I'm Dan Caporello here with John Cummins and Sam Wagers, and the beginning of season 3. Thank you for jumping in at season 3. I guess that's still like 2 years, but we're going into 3 years of making this show, and I can't really understand that that much time has passed. It seems kind of crazy that any project I do really lasts longer than that. So thank you all for listening. Today we're going to be talking about Majora's Mask. We're going to be talking about the degrees of emulation versus hardware, and that's kind of a vague thing to say. That's a topic we're going to talk about later. We'll talk about it later. And we have kind of a new sort of flow of the show. And I guess really all we did was we removed the icebreaker. Icebreaker's not here anymore. Goodbye, icebreaker. But instead, we opened up the topic to incorporate like pretty much anything we want to talk about. So like each of us picks a topic, and then we kind of go through and pick like, okay, what's going to take up how much time do we have, and what's it going to take up? And then if there's a specific game that really hits you that you've been playing recently, you can put that as your topic, and that's what Sam did this week for Majora's Mask. Other than that, the show's pretty much the same. Still have Prices Retro, still have Community Couch, so all the good stuff you love, just slimmed up. Slimmer, slender.
Great flavor, all new formula.
That's it. Well, wouldn't the formula change the flavor?
Maybe.
Well, I guess we'll see, because we haven't done it yet. New look, same great taste. But yeah, RetroLogic isn't just
what we're going for.
Exactly, yeah. RetroLogic isn't just a podcast. It's a community of retro gamers, and we've got an active, friendly, free Discord community you can join. We've got giveaways, contests, and you can dive into our family of retro podcasts like RetroGroove, which is a music history podcast, and On Topic Retro, a podcast dedicated to one video game per episode, hosted by our very own John Cummins. And you can find everything on the website, retrologic.games. So, with that out of the way, what did everyone play this week? Anything, you guys have any pickups?
I've been playing basically just a bunch of No Man's Sky, which is really weird.
On Switch?
Yeah, I've been playing on Switch. I didn't really think I'd be into it all that much because it's basically just like a giant sandbox game. And excuse me, I've been playing in the past. I tried to play Subnautica a little bit, which it reminds me a lot of Subnautica, but it has like just the systems are a little bit better. Like it's easier to like, there's a lot more things to craft and like gather and just different things. There's a lot more areas you can go to. But yeah, really been enjoying that. Sunk a lot more time into it. Like one day I just sat down and played for like 6 hours and didn't even realize it. Like, wow. It's one of those games where like you just get going and next thing you know, you look at the clock. It's like, oh dang, it's like 10 at night. Didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I was going to mention, this can kind of be like a little bit of a PSA for those who had the Best Buy Gamers Club at one time. I had a weird deal come up where I pre-ordered a copy of Bayonetta 3 like back in 2018.
Oh my gosh.
And forgot about it. Yeah. Whenever they like around the time they announced it, I went ahead and just pre-ordered it because Best Buy had a listing open. And I just threw it in with like a big order. Like I think I ordered like 10 games because
Dang.
I got the discount. And so apparently if you do that and you've already received all the other games in the order, they consider like it's some weird deal with the discount. But if I canceled, I was still going to have to pay them like $30 back.
What?
Regardless. Yeah, it was like a weird deal. So if I canceled, I still owed $30 or some random amount.
That doesn't
so I
seem
ended
right.
up just keeping my pre-order, and it's funny because I just found out I think it was earlier or late yesterday about the whole deal. I was trying to figure it out, so I just decided I'm just going to let the game come, and because I've already pre-ordered the collector's edition, the Masquerade edition anyway. So I'm thinking about it, and then this morning Seth over at All In announces that he's doing a giveaway of the game. And I tell them that I have an extra copy, and I was like, you know what? How about you just let everyone know that you can give away 2, and I'll just let you have the one that that I have extra.
That's super cool, dude.
Yeah. So anybody that wants, I don't even know when his giveaway ends, but you know, you should just go check out All In over at Twitter or even on Discord.
Definitely.
Great group of guys, but yes, they're giving away some copies of Bayonetta 3 because of Best Buy's weirdness.
That's so weird. I mean, yeah, anybody listening to this show should definitely go listen to Seth over at All In. I can't. Yeah, they have to go do it. Awesome. Cool. Sam, any pickups this week? Anything going on in your world?
Well, I did finish some games.
There you go.
Past week or two. I mean, one of them being Majora's Mask. I'll talk about that later. The other being the game I was streaming, which was Mega Man Network Transmission, which is like Mega Man Battle Network 1.5. So I'll be moving into Battle Network 2 next time I stream, next Monday. Not this Monday because I'm on the road this week.
Are you glad to be rid of it?
Yeah. For anybody that's like, what is this game and why isn't it on the collection that's coming out next year? You're not missing much. It's not great. I did not learn my lesson though, because now I'm so in the hole where I have to play every Battle Network game now, including the ones I haven't played before. So I bought Battle Chip Challenge for the Game Boy Advance, which is another spin-off game, which I think I had confused with Real Operation, which is the one that didn't come out outside Japan and used a peripheral that also didn't release outside Japan, where you have like actual battle chips that you put in.
And that would be cool.
This is not that. This is basically a very pared down. It's a different battle system, and basically, once the battle starts, you don't do anything. Your character takes actions based on the battle chips you selected and random chance.
No.
And you just kind of hope that it works.
Sounds to me like you need to hunt down the Japanese version and all the chips.
Well, that's a different game. That is a different game. There's
like a better game.
There's a couple unreleased globally Battle Network games, which I will not be getting because that's just hard. I actually do the Wonder Swan game. Not the Wonder Swan version of Battle Chip Challenge, which there is one, which is just that but worse because there's less content cut. Because content was cut to fit it on a Wonder Swan card.
Yeah, Wonder Swan's a lot smaller.
But there is another one. I think it's called Mega Man EXE just WS or Mega Man Battle Network for Wonder Swan. And it's basically like what Network Transmission is, but they did it right. Where it's like a classic Mega Man game that uses the Battle Network designs for characters. It actually looks a lot like Mega Man Zero, which is weird because the game that was actually made by Inta Creates is Battle Chip Challenge, oddly enough. But yeah, so that one takes place in between Battle Network 3 and 4, so you'll have to wait a while to watch me stream that. Battle Network 2 is next. Which I found out recently has a hard mode, so I'll be doing it on hard mode to see if that's any different.
You're a glutton for punishment there, Sam, and
it's way too much Battle Network.
I admire you for it. Awesome. Well, good stuff. I might just have a few pickups this week. This is going to be kind of the last of my pickups for a while. I got to refund the old, not refund, fund the old PayPal account now. I was selling some stuff, but got a copy of Mega Man Max 2, the red one, which I know John picked one of those up fairly recently.
I have the original 2 games on Game Boy Color.
Okay. Yeah, and I played it for
Bomberman Max.
Bomberman. Right? What did I say? Mega Man?
Bomberman. You said Mega Man.
All the men.
And I'm like,
first you said
I don't know of a Mega
Man.
Man. I don't know of a Mega Man Max 2, and if it's a real thing, I want it.
Yeah.
No, Bomberman Max 2, which is like Bomberman with a story mode. And the little bit I played of it's fun. I mean, it's what you expect, Bomberman-ness plus some stat stuff.
When are we getting Bomberman vs. Mega Man. Like, that's a game that should already exist.
Why isn't Bomberman in Smash Brothers? Because
He's an
Konami.
assist trophy.
Yeah, he's an assist trophy. He kind of is.
No, shut up. I don't want to do that. I want to bomb people as Bomberman. He actually has a
Just be
costume.
Link of
Doesn't he have a costume?
Link skin. Yeah, probably a me costume.
Yeah. Also,
Link
Perfect.
has bombs.
Also picked up Perfect Dark, which is a game I didn't know I didn't own. Apparently, it just slipped through the cracks.
What?
Yep.
You have an expansion pack? Oh, yeah, you do. Because you
I
got
do.
Donkey Kong 64.
I have a double expansion packs, and I actually, you know what? I need a jumper pack because there are select few games that actually will glitch out if you're using it with an expansion pack.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get a jumper pack because I like sold my jumper pack when I got the expansion pack because I'll never use this because I'm a doof.
Or, I might have one. Let me look. I might send one your way.
All right. I don't want a third party piece of junk.
No, it'd be official if I have it.
Okay. Thanks, John. Also, finally got a copy of Super Mario 3D World for the Switch plus Bowser's Fury because there's apparently an entire whole Mario game in there that I've never played before, which is Bowser's Fury. And everybody says it's awesome, and I'm like, cool. You know what? I don't hate Mario. I'll give it a try. Also, Super Mario 3D World would be great to play with my kids, who are now doing the whole co-op thing. And I don't want to buy any of the like new Super Mario Brothers games. I don't find them fun in any way. So Mario 3D World it is. Plus you can be a cat, so my daughter will love it. And then last and certainly not least is I paid a little bit less than price charting for a copy of a Baten Kaidos, if that's how you say it. Some people say something else, but it looks like Baten Kaidos to me. For the GameCube, the first one, not the prequel. And Monolith Soft RPG, card-based battler. So kind of just a lot going for it. I've never played it. I think my brother played it. But I would love to give it a shot, just see what it's all about. And now I can. And it's kind of, in my eyes, part of like the GameCube essentials, like part of kind of what you have to own if you're trying to get like all the really great GameCube stuff. Origins, unfortunately, I think is like pretty expensive now, like $100 plus. It's not what price charting says, but I can't find anything under 100, so I'm going to keep my eyes open because people say that one's real good too. That is it for what I played this week. We've got a little bit of housekeeping. Sam, you already talked about kind of what you're streaming coming up. So John, you've got a fresh On Topic Retro episode coming out this week. What do you have going on?
So Wednesday we will be... So far, I believe it's just Chris HL and I will be recording a episode on Comic Zone, which is the Retro Rewind game for the month. If anybody wants to hop on, well, I guess, I don't know, depending on how fast Dan gets us out, it might be too late, but
no,
be looking forward to that episode.
I get it out the next day most of the time.
Okay, so if you want to hop on, just let me know. But yeah, so Comic Zone's it's a very quick game. Like you get, especially with Rewind kind of like breaks the game. Like you could just basically sit down and beat it in like an hour and a half or so. It's pretty quick. It's a nice little beat 'em up.
Yeah. I remember really liking it back in the day. I didn't really have time to fire it up, but, yeah, I can't wait to hear you guys talking about it because I certainly like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's my favorite little nugget about that game is that, Sega of Japan, after like getting the demo, like early build of it, called it like everything wrong with American culture.
I remember that.
Yeah, which is really weird because like I just don't understand
violence and action.
I mean, yeah, it's violence, but I mean, it's not.
I mean, I play it now and I'm like, wow,
abnormally.
this game is just very 90s.
Which is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Which is great. That's why we love it. What do you guys say we play some, jump into some Prices Retro? If this is your first time playing The Price is Retro, here's how we play. I'm going to list off 4 or 5 games, and everyone else has to guess how much the lot is worth in total. Whoever's closest to the actual price wins that round. Everyone has a list, and everyone guesses on each other's lists, and at the end, the player that won the most rounds wins the episode. But watch out for the killer robot. He averages all of our guesses together for his own guess. I feel like this is going to be way harder to beat than the lovably predictable poltergeist. Yes.
Yes.
So one of us always has to be like way off for it to, or really close. We have a challenge ahead of us. Now the thing about our robot friend or enemy, as it were, is that he doesn't have a name or a likeness yet. He's just kind of existing in the ether, doing his damage. We need your help, listener, to name our killer robot, who is our guest, who averages our scores together. I'm going to be making a post about it in our Discord, which is free. If you want to join the Discord and be part of this discussion, go to my Twitter or go to the website. And at RetroLogic Games, or RetroLogic.games is the website. And you can join the Discord for free and just kind of jump into the conversation and try to name our robot. And I'm going to tally up everybody's going to like submit their names. Then we're going to do a poll to see whose name everybody likes the best. Last season, we had Poltergeist, who that was his name, and he was Poltergeist, who was our guest. So obviously that one worked out well. So I want to hear all the creativity. I want to see what you guys come up with. That being said, John, why don't you go first for this round of Prices Retro?
So I don't really have like a great theme. I just found some Game Boy games. Like I've been thinking about a lot about Game Boy here lately. Trying to gather
too. Like
as many good Game Boy games as I can.
That's the only section I'm excited to go to at retro stores now is Game Boy. I don't know what the deal is.
I mean, anything else that's cartridge-based retro is pretty hard to find nowadays. Like it's the same stuff in my stores. Yeah. Every time. Game Boy kind of shuffles.
Well, and Game Boy can still be pretty reasonably priced. Like unless it's something like obviously known rare, it's like, oh, you can still find some surprises or some good priced stuff that'll be cool. So
all right, so yes, Game Boy, and these are all loose. First game is F1 Pole Position. The second game is Great Greed, which is an RPG.
Great Greed?
Great Greed, like being greedy, like Wario.
No.
The third game is Captain America and the Avengers. And the fourth game is Cool Ball.
Cool Ball. And all of these are loose, like right?
Puzzle game. Yes, these are all loose. I'm assuming you know what kind of game Captain America is.
It's a Captain America game. All right. I'm going to go ahead and guess first then. I was going to say $65, but since it's so close to my favorite console, I'll just say $64.
Okay. I've got $225.
Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully we screwed the robot by doing that.
I'm pretty sure Great Greed is pricey. I don't think the rest of them are.
Yeah.
The question is how pricey.
That's the one I have
no idea where it's gone since.
That's the one I'm fairly certain. I have no idea at all.
Okay. I was trying to pick some of these to be a little bit more misleading, but it worked. So the total is $510.30.
Well, without even looking at your math there, Sam, for the robot, I can tell you that Sam took that lot.
That's true.
The average of our answers is like 150.
Poltergeist would have won this one.
That's right. See, sometimes being dumb is smarter than...
I was still under 300.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
so
give us the breakdown.
I'll go ahead and list them off.
Yeah.
F1 pole position for the Game Boy Loose is 171.68.
What?
Great Greed. Yeah. Great Greed for the Game Boy Loose is 128.68. And Captain America and the Avengers for the Game Boy Loose is 119.99. And Cool Ball for the Game Boy loose is $89.95.
It's like what I would have guessed those for complete prices.
Oh, this isn't the same game, the F1 game I was thinking of. That's stupid. John, I hate you, but damn it, I respect you. That was so sneaky. Okay. So Sam definitely took that lot. So Sam, you're coming back. You said you were coming back for season 3, and you are hitting it hard so far.
There we go.
Yep.
John, do you want to, or Sam, sorry, do you want to go next?
Sure. I have a pretty obvious theme here. I think some of these games might have come up before, but I don't know. I got Pets Dogs 2 for the Wii. That's Pets with a Z, Dogs with a Z.
Of course.
2 is just a number 2.
It's the second one.
Complete in box. These are all going to be complete in box.
Okay.
Dog's Life for the PlayStation 2. Complete in box once again. Nintendogs Dalmatian and Friends for the Nintendo DS. Complete in box. And Barbie Groom and Glam Pups for the Nintendo 3DS. Complete in box.
Am I going first?
Yes.
I'm going to say $50.
That was literally my guess. Dang it. All right. So now I'm just trying to make the robot not win. Do I think John is too high or too low? I'm going to say, because these games are real pieces of work, I'm going to guess $40.
Okay.
Really?
So 40 and 50. So the average would be 45. I can do that math. Pets Dogs 2 for the Wii is $5.14.
All right.
Dog's Life for the PS2, $14.99.
Oh,
Nintendogs Dalmatian and Friends, $9.49. And Barbie Groom and Glam Pups for the Nintendo 3DS, complete in box, $2,016.43.
oh, I freaking knew that too.
So what was the total on this?
$2,046.05.
Well, that would be John.
Total.
Oh, no, wait. Oh, yeah. That is John.
So apparently the 3DS version must be way better than the Wii version, because the Wii version's like $5.
Or something happened and there's only like 5.
I don't know. Yeah.
Dang it. Listen.
Well, and the weird thing is, like, that price has doubled in like since September too. Like, it was like 1,000 back in September.
Oh.
So I don't know what happened.
I like knew that in the back of my head and just forgot. Didn't know it. I knew it, but I didn't know it. All right, well, point for Sam, point for John. It's impossible for me to win on any planet now, but I've got a list, so we'll do that. Okay, these are all, because it's episode 90, these are all games that came out in 1990, so enjoy. They're all complete in box. We have The Amazing Spider-Man for Game Boy, complete in box. Final Fantasy III for the Super Nintendo, complete in box. Michael Jackson Moonwalker for the Sega Genesis, complete in box. And Snake's Revenge for the NES, complete in box. And
Sam gets to go first.
Sam goes first, yeah.
My turn to go first. I'm just gonna guess 360.
Okay.
I'm going to guess 400.
All right. Actual retail price is $710.03, which that gives John a commanding lead. We do have a guest list this week as well, so we're going to let that go before we declare a winner or a tie. But I'll go through these prices for you. We've got The Amazing Spider-Man for Game Boy is $76.53. Final Fantasy III is $360.45. Moonwalker is $160 even, and Snake's Revenge is $113.05. So all 100 plus, except for Spider-Man.
I'm going to be honest. I had no idea what you said for the second game. I just heard 3.
360. Yeah.
So, well, I just know for whatever you were
for
saying.
the title?
I should have had you. I should have had
John,
you repeat them, but that's all right. I just
takes
did
me
a solid
2 seconds.
$100 across all of them.
It takes me 2 seconds. You would have won if you had known, probably.
I did win.
Oh, yeah.
He won anyway, so.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Stupid. Okay. Here, let's go grab our guest list, who is from none other than Flightsy, the man himself. The title is Season...
He's back.
He's back. He's back in action. Season 3 premiere is the theme. He says, remember to read the title of the list and guess what the games are. So the title of the list is Season 3 premiere. So the obvious thing is they're all 3s, right? Donkey Kong Country 3,
yep.
Mega Man 3, whatever.
Are there games that start with 3?
3 houses.
Since this is the premiere.
3 kingdoms. 3 match 3. I don't know. Something like that.
I don't know any games that start with 3. 3 ninjas.
Well, gosh darn it, let's find out. 3 ninjas. Okay, game number 1. Hang on, let me move my notes over. I have to do that every time so that I can take notes while I see the notes. Game number 1. Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Hey, we guessed that. Seasons of Warfare. Sorry, let me start over because this is getting crazy. Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Seasons of Warfare Edition for the Switch, complete in box.
Yeah.
Game 2. Gradius 3. Okay. For the Super Nintendo, loose. I actually just bought that game at Classic Game Fest this year. I love Gradius. Game 3. Final Fantasy 3 for the DS. Condition is new for that one.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and guess first on this one again because we kind of went in a circle already.
And it's just 3 games.
It's just 3 games.
Also, a 3.
My guess is $520. John?
I'm going to say 500 even.
Okay. And Sam?
I'm going to go lower. I've got 410.
All right. So used to saying Ghost. Robot is somewhere in the 550s, 560s, something like that.
Would you say, Sam?
I'm sorry,
410.
Okay.
I was wrong. The Ghost is somewhere in the 450s, something like that. Or I keep saying Ghost. Guys, it's a new season. We got to get it together.
He's a robot.
Okay.
Get it right.
Beep boop bop.
Maybe he's a GoBot.
Maybe he's a GoBot.
He's a GoBot, yes.
The prices. Okay. The total is oh my gosh. The total is $333.33. How do you do that on price charting? Flightsy. Come on.
How did he find 3 games that equaled $333.33?
It's a lot of
some artistry,
trial
man.
and error.
That is
a lot. Crazy. Anyway,
he's a master tactician.
Fire Emblem is $235.83. Gradius is $13.46, and Final Fantasy is $84.04. New for Final Fantasy 3 DS?
Yeah, for new? That's crazy.
Somebody fact check.
How often do they sell new ones, though? I mean, it probably just hasn't had a listing on price charting in a long time.
No, people are always selling dumb stuff. Final Fantasy 3 for the DS.
$74.99.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Well, I believe you.
Buy it now.
I believe you because we just proved it, but I still believe you because you're my friend. Well, that's good. So that means that Sam is the winner.
We're tied. Sure. Yeah, I won that round, so now we're tied.
Now John and Sam are tied, and we used to have a tiebreaker. I don't really remember what that was. John, do you remember what that was?
It was how close our total guesses are.
Ugh. Do we have that information readily available?
Yes, we do.
I'm pretty sure I got you with Barbie.
You did get, because yours was like,
I think that dwarfs
Jeez.
everything else. This.
You did.
round.
Give me the numbers. What's the difference, John?
Okay, so my total difference was $28.06 and 8 cents. Sam's is $1,045.33. But that's because his lot was $2,000.
Man, did you dirty with that Barbie game? Never gonna forget that
dirty.
again.
All right, Sam wins.
Sam,
it will go into the log.
Congratulations. I think the robot's gonna have a harder time than I thought.
No, I mean he hangs. I mean he definitely was closer.
He doesn't stand a chance if we all lowball it. Is the thing. So those are usually the hardest lots.
Yeah, that's true.
Because then it's whoever guesses the highest is going to win.
Yeah,
on those.
But I mean, what it does help out with, like, where with the ghost on the on the higher lots, if we all guess higher, then the robot's right there with us. Where the ghost is stuck at 300 no matter what.
Yeah,
or
the really low lots.
Maybe we can come up with a way.
$50-$60.
Maybe we can come up with a way for the robot to be more accurate without getting crazy with it. I don't know. Or we'll just leave it because the ghost didn't win that often anyway, So
now we can see. I think the poltergeist, based on my documentation, won 3 times last year.
Really? That's it?
On the shows that I was on.
Yeah. Okay. So we're probably fine.
Like as many times as I won.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Flightsy has an explanation he wrote out, and I'm going to read it here. He says, these prices were verified at 12:15 a.m. Central Standard Time on 10/23/2022. The list is pretty self-explanatory. These 3 games with 3 in the name, totaling $333.33. To find these, I chose 2 arbitrary games and collections, calculated the difference to get $333.33. Used Control F to search for a match. Repeated if there wasn't one. Okay, that makes sense. The one time it was 1 cent over, $333.34. Another time I had a game that would be a match if the dollar and cent amounts were switched. Well, that's interesting. I hope my tedious work was worth it. Absolutely. Thank you, Flightsy. As always, it's genuinely a great time when you give us a list because it's always something fun. Thank you for doing that for us. Well, Sam, congrats. I mean, back in action.
Couldn't have done it without Barbie.
Season 3 opener winner.
I couldn't have done. If we did joke titles for our episodes, this title would be I couldn't have done it without Barbie for sure. Maybe we should start. I just kind of feel like, I try to make the title topical for SEO, but do I really care about that anymore? Do I? I don't know.
Well, there's search engine optimization and then there's clickbait, Dan. Which one are you going to do?
Which one do you think?
I've been doing SEO. I've been doing SEO for 2 years. Maybe it's time to switch it up. We are nothing.
Let's go back.
We're nothing here at RetroLogic if not innovators.
That's right.
I do have another game to play. Guess who it's from?
What's his name right now?
Ambassador. He'll always be the ambassador in my heart.
He'll always be Amy Rose fan 420 in my heart.
Yes, Amy Rose fan 420. That's right.
It's so good. Okay. I haven't read any of his instructions for this, but it's a whole thing. It's an Are You a Nintendo quiz. A simple quiz to read on your podcast to determine how Nintendo you are. Answer all the questions honestly. The scoring results are at the bottom. Okay, so all right. So keep track of your personal scores. There's 5 questions and there's multiple choice. So keep track of how many A's, B's, C's, and D's you got individually. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Question 1. You have $100 at a used game store. What do you pick up? A, a bunch of fun and highly acclaimed games that will give you leftover cash. B, that one Pikmin game you don't have. C, every Mario and Yoshi plushie in the store. Or D, a rare Super Mario Bros. 2 cartridge with 15 screws in the back and a slightly skewed label after you take out a loan. So you have to take out a loan for number D. B for me, hardcore. Hardcore B. I got to get all those Pikmin
probably
games.
B.
I'm missing one Pikmin game, though. I'm missing the new Play Control Pikmin 1. I think that's the only one I don't have. That was released in North America, at least. All right, everybody have their number, the letter?
Yep.
All right. Question 2. You will find out the Switch 2... Sorry, let me start over. You find out the Switch 2 will have Wii-era graphics, no online, and N64 controls. What do? A. Buy a Steam Deck because Nintendo has broken your heart. B. Wait for the reviews to see if it's good. C. Pre-order it. Or D. Spend the rest of your life on Twitter destroying the livelihood of anyone who criticizes it. I mean, I'm going to pre-order it. I'm going to pre-order it sight unseen. And then just accept that it's probably going to be horrible.
Yeah, I've never actually been a big pre-order guy. Really.
You're going to wait for reviews then?
The only system I ever pre-ordered was the Switch.
Well, maybe your equivalent would be you just know you're going to buy it day one or soon after.
If you pre-ordered the Switch, why wouldn't you just pre-order the Switch too?
It's also the only one I got day one. So I guess I'm closer to the wait for reviews.
All right. Not
that I would put that much stock in reviews, but
I'm probably a C also with Dan.
Yeah.
I tend to just buy things.
That's what exactly. It's Nintendo. I'm going to buy a Durf. All right. Question 3. Nintendo is having a contest to see how loyal their fan base is. You have to prove your loyalty. Do you A, make a cute poster about Mario with glitter? B, get level 4-1 of Mario tattooed on your back? C, put down Miyamoto as the recipient of your organs if you should die?
Wow.
And D, send Miyamoto the head of Sonic, the severed head of Sonic.
Oh, D. Definitely D.
Oh, yeah. Man.
D sounds interesting.
I don't want to get a tattoo. I don't know.
What was B again?
B was get level 4-1 tattooed on your back.
Okay. Yeah, and C was... I'll do C.
Okay, I don't really care
It doesn't require anything of me.
Yeah, I don't really care about this contest. I think I'm just going to go A. I don't want to get murdered by Nintendo so that Miyamoto can live longer.
Well, no, I mean, you're just... Like, that's like one of those deals like you sign on the back of your driver's license.
I mean, I'm an organ donor, but if my organs automatically go to Miyamoto, Nintendo's going to hire Yakuza to come after me for my organs. That just is going to happen. So I'm not going to participate in the loyalty contest. I feel like I get enough flack for it anyway. All right, number 4. Xbox has decided to purchase Metroid. How do you react? A, with joy, because Nintendo is now on Game Pass. B, with anger. You stage a protest because Xbox touched your sacred baby. C, with fury. You refuse to touch any Windows programs ever, and now you are a Linux dude. And D, with uncontrollable depression. Anything that is micro or soft sends you into a violent sobbing. That'd be so weird.
I'm going to go A.
Can you imagine? I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of... I mean, I would be skeptical of, like, what is Metroid going to be like now? But I feel like wait and see. Wait and see what it's actually like. What actually happens.
I already have Game Pass, so...
I'd be pretty upset. Like, that means that Metroid's going to not be made by whatever his name is. I don't remember what names. The guy, the guy. Sakamoto. Yes, Sakamoto. I had Sakamoto in my head. I didn't want to be wrong, so promise. So
maybe they just get the team and everything when they buy it.
I don't know that I would start the protest, but if there was a protest, I would super join it. I'd be kind of upset about that. All right, number 5. You have just won a Toys R Us shopping spree. Which aisle do you run to? A, the PS5 and Xbox X. B, to all the Switch games you can afford. C, you take everything in the store but the Nintendo stuff so that it can be honored by all. Or D, you take all the Switch games but then mail $59.99 to Nintendo for each one because Nintendo's pricing strategy is fair and just. Oh, Ambassador. It's good stuff. No, B.
Probably A again.
B. Yeah.
Or what was B?
A was PS5 and Xbox.
Buy a PS5.
Yeah.
Oh, already done that. So yeah, B.
B was all the Switch games you couldn't afford, which is definitely B. All right, so here is the scoring. You have to tally up your score. A's are worth 1 point, B's are worth 2 points, C's are worth 3 points, and D's are worth 4 points. So let's real quick tally everything up. All right. I got a 10.
I'm at an 11.
I got a 10.
So am I.
I'm a 10. You guys are both 11s. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. We all fall in the
more
same.
of a Nintendo than you are.
Well, slightly. There's tiers. So if you got between 5 and 9 points, you're not playing with power. You probably think the Atari Jaguar and the 32X is better than the Super Nintendo. Ooh. 10 to 15 points, which is all of us. You are faithful to the company, and we can count on you to join the resistance against these Sony fanboys who tried to tell you Sackboy is better than Mario. Okay. Oh, Mario Odyssey. And then beyond us, if you're 16 to 19 points, you're a Nintendo Chad, and your blood is pure Pikmin sap. You named your kids after the Ice Climbers. You are brave enough to play Fire Emblem on Wii all the way through. And then if you get a perfect 20...
I actually have done that. Where are my extra points?
Yeah, you need extra points for that.
You didn't name your kids after the Ice Climbers.
Oh, that's true. But I did play Fire Emblem on Wii.
I did name one of my kids...
More than once.
I named one of my kids after Tails, the fox.
That's because you're a Sega bro.
His name is Miles. I'm not an anything bro. I'm a retro bro.
Retro bro.
There is a paragraph here if you score a perfect 20. And I'll just read it verbatim. You call yourself Nintendo Daddy. You have no idea DVDs existed because the GameCube and Wii didn't have them. You buy Switch games at full cost and actually feel like it's a crime that they should ever dip below $60. You only buy computers with 32 gigabytes of storage because that's the perfect amount. You strategically shrink your hands to be able to the size of an 8-year-old's to fully feel the Joy-Cons. Your favorite sport team is Wario on the 400-meter hurdles. Okay. You only date women with the body proportions of Palutena. Seek help. Oh my goodness, Ambassador. Okay. Well, I'm glad that none of us are extremists here, but I want to know what you guys got. I'll ask Ambassador to post this quiz in the Discord for you guys, so you guys can find out how much of a Nintendo bro or sis, we have girls in there too, you are.
In Nintendo.
Nintendo. John, do you have a trivia card for us this week?
I do. I don't even think we've gone through like half of them yet. There's more than I thought.
Good. We will go to the end of time.
You're definitely not a Nintendo bro if you get this wrong. Who does Mario fight at the end of Super Mario 64?
Himself. Yoshi.
Dark Mario.
Dark Mario.
Dark Mario.
Dario.
Dario.
Yes. Not to be confused with Wario.
Yeah.
That's
Bowser.
Daria's brother, Dario.
Bowser Koopa of the Mushroom Kingdom, I guess. Where's he from?
The Koopa Kingdom.
Koopa Kingdom? His own kingdom?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second question is, what is the name of the 5th game in the main Doom game series that was released in 2020?
Doom?
Yep.
Doom. Wait, 2020?
Wait, released in 20? So, like, that's a reboot?
Nope. Main Doom game.
Doom Eternal.
Oh, so this is the 5th game, and it was released in 2020.
Yes.
Doom Eternal.
Yeah, is that Doom Eternal?
That is correct.
That was weird verbiage, but I'm glad we got there.
I mean, it was a mainline Doom game that was released in 2020.
I
and it was
parsed
the
that
5th.
as the series was released in 2020, and
No, it was the
5
5th.
of them since. And I was like,
5th game in
no?
the series.
I was confused, but we got there. So
That's correct.
that is how we do Prices Retro. Thanks for joining us. If you want to submit a list for us to guess the prices on, you're so friggin' welcome to do that. All you have to do is DM me on Twitter or Discord. It's at RetroLogic Games on Twitter. And if you're in our Discord community, you know how to find me. And don't give me the list right away. Just tell me I have a list. And then I'll give you some very easy to follow instructions because we got to make sure everything's nice and fair. You do have to spoiler tag your stuff. So please DM me your list of games and we will read them on the show and guess the prices. And it makes it super fun. I mean, Flightsy's over here, pulling the weight for all of you guys. Let's have some new community members submitting stuff. Let's do it. Let's get it in here for season 3. That being said, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we've got our show topics. We've got 2 of them. We have Degrees of Emulation, and we have Sam talking about his thoughts on Majora's Mask Freshly Beaten in the year of our Lord 2022. So let's go do that now. Welcome back to the show. Show topics. So this is new for season 3 is we are kind of all bringing different show topics to the table. This week I have a topic and Sam has a topic, and next week we are going to hit up with John's topic because we also want to make sure that we are being responsible with our time because we record these late at night and I like to not be tired in the morning. So selfishly, I don't want to spend that much time on these podcasts anymore. As much as you love hearing them, sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Anywho, our first topic is my topic, which is something that I came up in the Discord maybe a month ago. We were talking about like, John, you just got the thing. What's the thing called? The portable game.
Retroid Pocket 3.
You got the Retroid Pocket 3. I just got a Chris developed EverDrive for my Game Boy Advance. And Sam, you have things like the Super NT, Super SG. And I was just thinking about how there's so many like degrees of, I call them degrees of emulation, even though emulation isn't necessarily what's happening all the time with these. I just don't have a better word for it. It's anything.
It's like how authentic are you trying to be?
Exactly. It's really anything outside of like a purely authentic experience. Like if you're not playing your GameCube with a GameCube controller on an authentic piece of hardware with no modifications going into a CRT, like anything outside of that experience with a GameCube, I would consider to be like a degree of emulation. Even with things like my Game Boy Advance, which is a Game Boy Advance motherboard. It's pure Game Boy Advance. There's no emulation happening at all. And I'm playing authentic Game Boy cartridges in it. It's still a new backlit screen, ISP screen. So I'm getting a different experience than I am playing on even an SP. Like a raw SP version 2 has a worse screen than my new fancy ISP. So like that's a better experience, arguably, than playing on an old piece of hardware that's authentic, but it's still not, quote unquote authentic. It's augmented in some way. So maybe it's like degrees of augmentation. I don't really have like a perfect phrase for it. So degrees of emulation is where we landed. And so I also polled the community to see like where you are, like what's your preferred way, and what do you own and what do you like to use. But I just kind of wanted to go through what they all are, where we stand, kind of experientially and maybe even a little bit morally, because we all do kind of land in different places on these things. And it's just an interesting topic to sort of talk about and see where we are. Now, as a general rule in RetroLogic, we are non-gatekeepy, and I want you to be able to play the games the way you want to play them. So if you want to run all your games off your PC, off of an emulator, and download your ROMs, like, I'm not going to fault you for that. Even if I disagree with it morally or legally or whatever, I'm not going to come here and say, like, try to like hold some moral high ground over you. I'm just going to say like, hey, I think that's illegal, but you do you. Like, that's kind of where we're going to stand on that. So we're going to start with modded hardware with authentic software, which the examples of that would be what I just said earlier about my Game Boy Advance, which is it's original hardware that's modded to give you a better experience, but I'm still playing original Game Boy games in it. And John, you have a DMG Game Boy that you modded with a backlit screen, right?
Yep. And a Game Boy Advance.
Yeah. And actually also, in addition to that, is lithium ion battery, which is a way better experience than swapping double A's, especially on that DMG with the 4 of them. Sam, I don't know. Do you own anything like that? Modded hardware, modded authentic hardware?
No, I don't think I actually have any like original hardware that's been modded.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. I would say that for handhelds, that's like the best. That's
the way to go.
Yeah. I play my Game Boy Advance all the time. I love that screen. It's super bright. It has like a little like my touch thing. So the screen that I got for the Game Boy Advance has a little panel, like a little like electrical touch panel that kind of flaps over around the top of the unit under the plastic. And you're supposed to be able to just kind of tap it, and it's supposed to feel the heat or something from your finger through the plastic and sense it. And you're going to like change the brightness of your screen so you don't have to solder wires from your start and select button to do it a different way. And it just didn't work for me. But then one day, like, it randomly started working. So I'm like, oh, cool, great. So it has, I can adjust the brightness. It's super bright, super crisp looking. It's just, and the Game Boy Advance shell that I have just feels really authentic. So I'm not super upset about the fact that the shell is aftermarket. The only thing on this console that's authentic is the board itself, the motherboard, and the games I play on them. But I still just much prefer it to playing on an authentic Game Boy Advance, any Game Boy Advance. It's the non-SP, because I don't like how the SP feels in my hand for extended periods of time. Yeah. Any other words on that, John?
No. I mean, I did solder mine in so that I have the hard controls for brightness on mine, but other than that, it should be pretty much exactly the same as yours.
If mine didn't start working, I probably would have sent it to you to have that done, but I don't know that I care that much.
And then on my DMG, it has like the ability to do like several different monochrome colors. So like you can play in red, make it look like a Virtual Boy, or you
Oh.
can play like it's got all kinds of different options color wise.
Yeah, I love that. That's really
With
cool.
backlit.
Since it's black and white. I thought about doing a DMG. I don't have a working one. So the closest I'd get is a Game Boy Pocket. I don't really want to do that to my Game Boy Pocket. So,
Yep.
But I have an SP that I might mod because the shell is real nasty.
They make it pretty cool when they like turns them into like a normal Game Boy style,
the
like where it's
slate.
all one piece.
Yeah,
Yep.
I saw those.
And they're aluminum.
My only thing with that is I already have the wide Game Boy Advance, and if I get an SP, it's so that I can like fold it and put it in my pocket. Like I don't know that I want another screen and buttons facing console. I'd rather just do a normal flip one with like a cool plastic. So the next level of emulation would be something like original hardware, totally original hardware, but you're playing ROMs off of either a flash cart or a burned disc without having to mod your system. Like, for instance, the Dreamcast, you can literally just burn your games onto a CD drive and put them into your authentic Dreamcast with no modding, and it'll play. Another example of this is the EverDrive, which is a Game Boy. What I have is a Game Boy Advance cartridge that is an emulator of the game software, and then you put an SD card in it with the ROMs, and then it'll trick the Game Boy Advance into thinking that it's whatever game ROM you're playing. The EverDrive specifically works very, very well, easy to use. It's the size of a Game Boy Advance game. And I've only done a little bit of testing with it, but it seems to work really, really well. Like I can't really tell a difference between running a ROM off of this and running an authentic piece of hardware. So John, do you have any? I know, Sam, I think you're running some ROM hacks of Super Nintendo games, right?
Yeah, mostly translation patches.
Yeah.
So I mean that's even another degree removed, right? You're talking about a modified version of the game, and in order to even do that, you aren't going to be able to do that to a cartridge. Now you could do it to a disc, potentially. That's where I don't have a lot of experience with flash carts. I know that I would expect there would be some cases where that might change the game a little bit, like how it actually plays.
Yeah.
Whereas with a burned disc, assuming nothing went wrong in the process of burning that disc, I mean, a CD-ROM is just a data,
Yeah.
it's standard CD-ROM. It's not like the custom chips in a cartridge game.
There are some.
There is fundamentally no difference other than the where it came from.
Right, exactly. And there are some instances with the older ROM cartridges where like saving the game has been an issue, or like there's been slowdown even because the cartridge is essentially running software to trick the hardware.
Yeah. And this is always, just in the history of emulation, especially you go to things like Super Nintendo or NES games that had special chips.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when an emulator is early in its life, those games will not run well.
For sure.
They have to basically add stuff to the emulator to make a game like Yoshi's Island work.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't just need a Super Nintendo emulator, you need basically a Yoshi's Island emulator at that point, because you have to mimic the special chips that were in that cartridge.
Exactly. Which makes it extra hard.
And even if you get something that works, it might not work 100% the same.
For sure. And even Nintendo's own like attempts at emulating those kinds of games have been questionable, like not perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the N64 it launched, and like people were like, "Hey, what happened to the fog?"
Right.
In Ocarina of Time in this area.
So they're kind of going in case by case with the emulator and saying like, "Oh, this specific one has to be fixed in this way." So that's tricky with any sort of ROM emulation that gets tricky. John, do you have any examples of this? Original hardware running ROMs one way or another?
Nope, I don't have any flashcards.
Okay. The Dreamcast is, I can't think of another system that'll do that easily. I think maybe the Saturn, there's like a cartridge you can buy that'll hack the system until it lets you playing Burned, if I'm remembering correctly, but don't quote me on that. I think actually the Xbox requires like very little modding to be able to do that as well. The original Xbox.
Yeah. PSP is pretty,
yeah,
is known for being an emulator pretty easily.
Yes. And that actually goes into the next one, which is the modded hardware running ROMs and flash carts. But once you start modding your hardware, then you can essentially replace the disk drive of your GameCube and put a flash drive reader in it. So now you load all your ROMs onto a flash, onto an SD card, plug that into the disk drive where your disk drive used to be in your GameCube, and now you're off. And you're still running mostly authentic hardware, except for how the games are read, which is off of the SD card instead of the disk drive. So I've heard that that's very good and like effective as long as your ROM is.
Well, and it's also a very convenient way to just have all your games.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're talking about things like handhelds. You know, you don't have to, bring a box of games with you if you're, going to be on an airplane and just want something to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You can put every Game Boy game you own on a memory card and put that into some modded Game Boy or something like the Analog Pocket or whatever.
So for
and then you have them all ready to load without having to swap out cartridges or anything.
For home consoles, you a lot of the time have to modify it in order to run any sort of ROM. Yeah. With exclusions being like the Dreamcast. And I've looked into doing this for a Sega Saturn because I'm like really curious about that entire game library, and like that the prices for anything Saturn are just so exclusionary at this point, or just unreachable. Just like any RPG on that system, you're talking $200 in the door anywhere. So it's like, how am I going to play these awesome historical games that are never going to get remade? Well, like I would love to try to play them on authentic hardware because that's how I like to play my games. But maybe that's the way to do it, is you spend $300-$400 to get a modded Saturn that'll play off of an SD card. Like that to me seems totally viable and price worthy, as opposed to buying individual games for $400. Especially if it works as well as advertised. I've heard. I don't have any experience with that. John, do you have any experience with that?
With modding a console
modding a home console to run ROMs in any way?
I did. I messed around with the original Xbox quite a bit whenever it was probably like 3 or 4 years old. Like I broke mine open I bought one late in the game, and then I broke mine open and put some more fans in it, changed out like cases, add lighting. I think I did a different hard drive, and then I added like I believe I did some emulation on there as well, allowing you to play burn discs.
Yeah,
and
that would be what I'm talking
because
about.
Originally the Xbox won't play a burn disc natively, so you have to modify it to do that. And then you can also add, back then it was a little bit more tricky. There wasn't as many like good emulators you could use, but essentially you could run emulators off of an Xbox. It's basically like a PC already at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. So the next step we're going to talk about is aftermarket hardware. And so this is anything that is like 0% authentic in the hardware department, unless maybe you're swapping out like the shell so that it feels authentic. But we're talking about things like the Super NT and the Super SG that I know Sam has, and then the Retroid thing that we just talked about earlier with John. I don't actually own anything like that. I have experience with some Hyperkin consoles, and I don't love them, but I'm wondering what the experience is for you guys with analog. And John,
That's
also
way better
with your experience. Yeah, I'm sure it is, because then the price is that up there too.
I mean, the only thing I have to compare it to is an authentic Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Right. I never even had a Genesis, so this is the only Genesis I've played other than, emulated, re-released on later platforms stuff.
So first we're going to talk about aftermarket hardware using authentic software, which is analog, Super NT.
Right, and that seems to be something that's kind of, maybe it's just analog, but it does seem, I mean, there's other, competitors trying to go at lower price points. It seems there's a lot of interest in that now. There's a lot of interest in that now, because I don't remember there being stuff like that. Like when I was getting back into Super Nintendo, right, and the current thing was the GameCube. I don't remember there being anything. Maybe I was just unaware of it, but I don't remember there being, aftermarket Super Nintendos that, maybe it's because there were just enough, authentic Super Nintendos people were still just trying to get rid of at the time. But
I think Retron had been around for a while.
Retron? A little bit. Yeah. Well, and retro gaming has more recently than ever become, how do you say this? Like a boutique hobby, where I have disposable income and my collection is awesome, and I want to play it the best way possible.
I have to imagine if you were trying to sell in like 2003, if you tried to sell somebody, an analog Super NT, they'd be like, why would I pay that much for this? Yeah, I can find, it'd be like, I can probably go to a garage sale right now and find somebody who wants to sell me a Super Nintendo for $10.
Oh yeah, and there wasn't as much need for high definition gaming at that point.
That's a big
retro systems.
Yep, that's a big seller. Is that once HD became the standard, we were like, wait, how do I bring what I used to love into like my modern TV? And this is a way to do it, for sure. Without lag, too.
There's like several levels of quality when it comes to how, like, especially even just on the emulation side. Like, if you buy a Retron console, I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. That's basically like entry level, emulation. It's not going to be the greatest. You're probably going to experience some games that don't work. Like, they'll flat out tell you that not every game works. Like, they try to get every game to work, but it just doesn't work that way. Analog is like kind of on a different level than everyone else. They're putting a lot more time into their emulation. They're trying to make it as plug and play, authentic experience as you can get. I mean, there's even several added features to any of their consoles.
Well, and the other thing too, because I think this is a big thing that drives a lot of people's urge to try to be as authentic as possible, is the knowledge that, especially when you go from authentic, including a CRT, to trying to make it work on an HD television, you're going to add some kind of latency, right? Not just because of the processing of modern TVs, but also because you're going to have to run it through some kind of converter or upscaler just to get the video through.
Yep.
So this is actually an advantage, that instead of doing that with, and this in that case would be authentic hardware up to the TV, you're actually probably going to see more latency that way, because you have to run through an upscaler, than you would with the inauthentic hardware that is made for a modern TV.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially if you're running one that's not powered. Like,
right.
That's kind of another thing that we can hit on, is using original hardware with
upscaler,
like something like the RetroTink, or something like that. That's also true. A good route to go. Like,
and even
it's not original, but it's as close to original as you're going to get with an HD TV.
Now, RetroTink now with the X5 is kind of the analog of the upscalers for retro consoles because it's $300. Yeah, $300 for the X5, and like it's amazing, and there's almost no latency, like noticeably. And I have an X2,
and I have the Mini.
Yeah, and like I love the thing. I do kind of want to push for an X5. I just like having the option to be like, I'm going to play a Super Nintendo through this, or an N64, or a Genesis, or whatever has a, RCA, or RGB. Not RCA, yeah, but the
component and composite.
Yeah, exactly. So, and latency can be caused by a lot of different things, but I think that it's really cool that we live in an age where there's like all these options. I mean, and depending on where you stand with your what you want from your retro gaming experience, you have somebody out there makes a thing, and like depending on how much.
And a lot of that variety of options is kind of more at the target is like, do you already have a bunch of Super Nintendo games?
Right.
Yeah, basically.
And you just need a way to play them on a modern setup, or if you don't have any, and you were born in 2005, and now you're curious about the Super Nintendo, then it's like, okay, well, buy a Super Nintendo Mini.
Yeah.
Right. And just experience it that way.
And actually, I lied earlier. I do have an aftermarket piece of hardware that runs authentic software, and that is the GB operator.
Game Boy operator, yeah. That's what I was on.
Which I love.
And I think
strictly speaking, it doesn't actually run it. Your computer runs it.
Your computer runs it.
That's true, but that's the only way. That's the only thing I have to. Right. And honestly, some of the aftermarket hardware, like I know the Hyperkin just dumps ROMs. It doesn't actually play it off the cartridge. Does the Super NT do that?
No, it does the same thing.
Okay, so they all do that, really. It's just that the thing that you're playing off the ROM off of is the same as the dumper, as opposed to GB operator.
So the FPGA systems are a little bit different in that they are natively running. And this is part of the difference is why they can actually save. Now, the GB operator can actually save to cartridges too, which is one of its best selling points, I think, because there's other stuff like Retron that will not save to your cart.
No.
I know they kind of had some backlash on that with one of theirs.
So to move to the next level, next we're talking about aftermarket hardware with ROMs. And I think, John, you're the only one of us that has
this is probably the only, this is where the Retroid Pocket 3 that I purchased comes into play. Like, I basically bought this in order to have quick access to, my library of games on the go. Anything from, it can kind of do GameCube, some GameCube, depending on how demanding it is, but basically Dreamcast and older. It can play fairly well. Even PSP, it does a pretty good job with. It basically just allows me to not have to have all these cartridges with me. I mean, I've got somewhere around 1,300 games. So it makes it a lot, and it's all handheld. So anything that I would normally have to play on a console, on a TV, I can have, anywhere I want to play it. I mean, for the most part, I try to only have ROMs for games that I already own. They're not technically my ROMs. I didn't pull them from a cartridge, but I do own the games. And I'm a more loose person when it comes to ROMs. My line that I like to draw is basically if you're trying to emulate something that's brand new, that's pretty poor practice.
That's never okay.
You don't need to be doing that. Yeah, that's bad.
If you do that, you can get right out of my community. No.
Exactly. Yeah, that's horrible.
Well, I'll bring this up. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I'll just bring it up one time. I do get annoyed when people use the terms emulation and piracy interchangeably.
Yes.
There's a big difference. Want to bring some clarity to something here. Emulation is when you play the software on some other hardware that's mimicking the hardware it's it's intended to be played on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, emulation
Piracy is when you
broad.
when you get the software from somewhere that's not the official source.
Yes. I mean, piracy, all of it's emulation, but piracy is like a special, it's a, because I mean, technically, even if you're pirating a Switch game and you're playing it on your PC or whatever, you're emulating that on your PC. It's still emulation. It's just
there are official releases that are emulation.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just
clarifies
pirating.
the situation.
You've stole the software, you know.
Right.
To the point, like I like I said, I'm kind of more loosely ingrained in emulation, and especially when I was younger, you know, not even thinking about the legal matters of emulation. It's just like I just wanted to play these games. You know, you're not really thinking about it when you're a child, but yeah, definitely draw the line on newer stuff. Don't be stealing games. And then, you know, also back to Dan's point, if you know, there's plenty of games out there that there's no other way to even play them.
Mm-hmm.
We just had somebody post on Discord today 3 unreleased Game Boy Advance games that, you know, you can't purchase.
Mm-hmm.
So like basically the only way to play these games is to download a ROM of somebody's build, you know, that they've worked on. These games were never released, so that you can't go buy them anywhere.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of, you know, different forms and reasons why people emulate and get a hold of ROMs. Piracy is not not one that should be, you know, we don't condone that here.
For sure. And I'll even go a step further and say, like, yeah, if I download a ROM for a game that I never bought or don't own currently, like, yeah, I don't own the right to play that ROM. I didn't pay the company for it, so that's technically stealing. What I'm saying is, I think I'm okay with stealing that because they're never going to give it to me in a legal sense.
Are they? They're re-releasing all kinds of stuff.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And you know what? If they re-release
it now,
if I own a ROM of a game, if they re-release Minish Cap tomorrow, I will pay for it because I want to own it legally and ethically. Like I want that. But you know, and probably just my own personal morality behind it is like nobody's getting injured because of it. So like I'm okay with it. You know, and that's just kind of where you just have to kind of sit with where you're at.
The unfortunate truth is that backing up ROMs yourself, even if you have, because, you know, there's plenty of people who will, you know, they will download a game. They will do the illegal thing, which is to download the game from somebody who uploaded it, who is not the person who owns it. They do not have the right to do that.
Right.
They own the cartridge, but they want to play it on an emulator for whatever reason, because it's more convenient. Playing it on the emulator is legal. The way they acquired that ROM is not.
Right.
That's just how the law works. I'm not saying that's how the law should work. That's just how it does. That's how it is currently in every country that I know of that cares. Some just don't, I think. But
yeah, and a lot of it is like there's not a whole lot. The reason why it's allowed to go on as heavily as it is today is because it's not very well enforced.
The unfortunate fact is that downloading it off the internet is easier than copying it off of the cartridge. It just is. That's why people do it. That's why people do it in that circumstance. You also have people downloading it because they don't have it and they don't want to pay for it.
I will put another disclaimer out there about downloading ROMs is just please be careful where you get them if you choose to go do that, because it's very easy to throw a virus on your computer from downloading stuff like that. So like ask somebody you trust who has ROMs where to get them. I don't want to say where to get them on air here. Like DM me if you have questions. I'm happy to share with you how I get some, but like, yeah. So that
all that to say, and to kind of direct us back to the main topic, what I am pleased about is a lot of this newer hardware coming out that supports original cartridges will usually have the capability to back up ROMs yourself.
Yes.
So you don't have to download them from somewhere. And while it's not 100% airtight, as best I can tell, there is at least a good sound legal argument that that's perfectly legal to do.
Yes, for sure.
Nobody has ever been convicted for doing it. somebody might try to take it to court, but nobody really has because there's no real reason.
Well, and there's a lot of precedent for having there's tons of precedent for having legal backups of your own software. So there's no real way.
The argument pretty much runs that it is very similar to taping a cable broadcast TV show.
Yeah,
which has been defended in court in the United States and elsewhere.
So far, the most the ones that seem to get hit the most with it are people that are trying to make money. Doing so.
Absolutely.
Very few places that are just like distributing ROMs without payment ever hardly get hit because they're not personally making money off of it.
You go to the Internet Archive, which is a totally free library of tons of just stuff that's available, books and movies and video game ROMs and all that stuff, and it's all just there for free and just download it, and they're probably never going to get taken down because nobody's making a dime off of it. So it's just it is what it is in 2022.
And they are recognized as a library, and libraries do have certain exemptions when it comes to things like copyright.
Yes. So
whether or not that pertains to video game ROM files is sort of an open question.
I mean,
but they're content to do it until somebody tells them they have to take it down.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they do the same thing with books. Like, it's a tricky deal whenever you're a internet library because you're not supposed to like hold on to any of those things, and you're supposed to get rid of them after a certain period of time because it's kind of like a rental, or like borrowing, which is what a library is. There's nothing that says you don't get a book from there and you just keep it forever.
Right.
It works just like a real library. Nothing that's holding you from.
It gets weird because we're talking about digital media where people aren't just borrowing the media; they are making a copy of it.
Yep, which takes 2 seconds and is easy to do, and people do it by accident. So I want to wrap up our discussion about degrees of emulation. With our community poll. Let me go ahead and pull that guy up. I asked the community a question that I'm going to go up here. I said, so on tomorrow's show, we'll be discussing the various levels of emulation. I'd love to survey the community on how you prefer to play your games, excluding authentic hardware and software. And so we had all 6 options here, which is, and by far the one that took the most was emulation software with ROMs, which is essentially like you're playing it on something like John's device or just your PC. And it's just a piece of software and you can play that software anywhere, use whatever controller you want, and you play your ROMs off of it. Then the very, very close second with 5 votes is modded hardware with authentic software, which is what I was saying. My Game Boy Advance, my authentic Game Boy Advance with a new screen. So it's kind of funny how like there's all these degrees between those 2 extremes, and the 2 extremes are where people sit. So
yeah, the one extreme is the easiest form of doing so. It literally requires you like any PC can almost emulate most things nowadays.
And I will say too, the advantage of modded hardware is that I did the modifications myself, and that was like one of the funnest things I've done is like building my own, like doing the screen and like picking the colors and putting the case together.
And you could even add another thing, because I brought it up before, and that's modified ROMs, ROM hacks. That's the ones I do are translations.
That's
almost like Pokemon randomizers.
Oh, for sure. That's almost its own show.
And that's that's an interesting way to take it too, because you can talk about authenticity, yes, but it's like, okay, what do you actually, is it authenticity just for the sake of authenticity, or is it for, does changing the game from the authentic form, the original release, actually improve it? And we're usually okay with that when it's like a remake.
Yeah, or like bug patches.
Because there's, but even if you take stuff like the way emulators can do things like disable sprite limits, especially with a lot of like NES games, the game would perform differently because of the limitations of the NES. But when you're running it on an emulator, you don't have those limitations, and you'll usually have a toggle option to say. But that can substantially change gameplay at that point if you disable the sprite limit, and now you can actually spawn 20 enemies at one time, which the original game couldn't do.
Well, so
I mean, emulators do other things too to help, like, I mean, essentially Nintendo is using, they're using the benefits of their emulators to be able to give you rewind on games.
Yeah, and a big one is save states. That
save states. Yep.
And that can make a lot of games play very differently.
Way more palatable.
And I think, but the thing is too, like, to present the argument for authenticity is like, when you're actually going back and you're trying to sort of like criticize or judge or evaluate a game, and you've departed from the way it was sort of intended to be played, you have to at least acknowledge that. Like,
right.
Oh, yeah.
I played this game with save states. Like, when somebody says, "Oh, this game was super easy," and it's like, well, you save stated every
5 seconds.
You saved way more often than the game actually allows you to. It's like, realize, and that's not to invalidate like you didn't play the game at all, but like that was different about your playthrough than mine that I did back in 1993.
I will say I've had more fun with a lot of like NES games because of Rewind than I would ever have on authentic hardware. So,
well, and I think a game like our beloved Plock, it is still Plocktober. That is a game that I think a lot of people would enjoy more.
Yes,
if it was released in a form where they could save.
Yep.
Because the original game didn't have saves,
or even like a level selector or some way to sort of mitigate the difficulty for sure. That game
there's like, even like with Game Boy, like a lot of emulators don't emulate the motion blur that the screen had, so you get like more pixel perfect look, and like some people prefer even when they're emulating to like make it look like the older. Like, I've got some different filters on mine that make it look like a Game Boy, like with the lime green tones and motion blur all added in and all that stuff. Like, you have to add it back in, basically downscaling the performance.
Digital scan lines.
Yeah, digital scan lines add in. And it's kind of nice, like with the things that I enjoy the most about emulation is, especially if I'm emulating something that's like from the polygonal era of games, like anything N64 and to probably PS3, Xbox 360 eras, you can really clean up a lot of graphical things that are smooth out a lot of lines. You can really make them look a lot better than they originally were. And sometimes people have problems with. I mean, just look at how well like the PlayStation Classic went over. Like, everyone was like, "Man, these games are horrible. They look horrible."
Well, and I will say too, it's interesting because I kind of have a foot or a big toe in the PC game space, at least. I guess a little bit more than some others in our community.
Definitely more than me.
It's interesting that like that does change people's perspective on, it has to be authentic, because like you don't see any of that when it comes to PC. Like, no,
there's a scaler.
There's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of obstacles to playing old PC games. You try to run something that was made for DOS, you are going to need a straight up emulator,
or even Windows 98.
But yeah, when you get into that, like, I don't see anybody that's like, oh well, you're not really playing the original Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic unless you are running Windows XP to do it. Like, I don't see anybody saying that.
No one cares.
Right? Now, it is true though. Like, it's funny because that example comes to mind, because Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic you can buy on Steam, and you'll probably have to run your Windows in compatibility mode to actually get it to run. That's just, in the PC space, it's like, hey, you gotta fit your hardware into you gotta do what you gotta do to make games run.
Well, I mean,
that's how we operate.
That's the good part about being where we are at with video games, and like how mainstream they've become, is like you have those options. That's the whole reason why we have remasters and remakes today, is because somebody's nostalgic for this game and they don't have a way to play it, or don't want to go back and play the original version because of how it looks. So we make new ones.
Well, good. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll jump into Sam's topic, which is his thoughts on Majora's Mask now that he has completed it.
So I finally beat Majora's Mask, and I thought I would just talk about that because I know we've got some fans of Majora's Mask here.
And some not so fans.
It took me a long time. I guess I'm in the middle. I'll just come out and say that now. Like, this is not my new favorite Zelda game by any stretch, but I'm really glad I got to play it. I'm really glad I finally finished it. I appreciate it in some ways, but I do have my criticisms, and a lot of that just comes down to the time loop. I think it makes for an interesting setting for the game. I don't think it makes for the best game mechanic, because it does lead to a lot of frustrations, I think.
You definitely play a lot of the same stuff.
I will fully admit to using a guide. So I wanted to get as much as I could out of the game, and I wanted to get all the masks. I wanted to get all the masks so I could get the Fierce Deity mask at the end. And like, one of the things is because I knew I wasn't going to go 100%, and I was so thankful I didn't too, because I was going through the pretty much the last thing I did before fighting Majora was the couples mask quest. Which is like probably like the most elaborate side quest in the game.
Like, you're probably not going to finish that one without the guide.
Well, and the funny thing is, if you want 100% the game, you have to do the whole thing twice.
Oh,
because at the very end, you get a letter, and you can deliver it yourself, which will get you a bottle, or you can give it to the mailman for him to deliver it, which gets you the postman's hat, which is one of the masks you need to get the Fierce Deity masks. So if you want all bottles and all masks, you're going to have to just do the whole thing twice.
So I was
like, nope. I actually had to rewind because I wasn't looking at the guide too closely, and I delivered the letter myself. And I was like, I got a bottle, okay. And then I looked back at the guide, and I was like, do the quest again, and then get the postman's hat. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna load this save state and get the hat and forget the bottle. I have 4 bottles. I don't need a 5th.
So were you not do the fairies? Is that what you did in 100%?
I got all the fairies. I didn't get all pieces of heart. I didn't get all the bottles, I guess.
Sam, were you playing on NSO?
Yeah, I was playing on NSO.
Okay. I was wondering how you were doing the save.
I wasn't clear by the fact that I loaded a save state.
I was asking because that's why I heard that.
So you did get the Gray Fairy sword.
Yeah, well, and that is another thing too. It's interesting how the game does dungeons, and I've heard a wide variety of opinions on the dungeons in Majora's Mask, and I think a lot of it comes down to the stray fairies, because they're a pretty big part of the dungeons. Like,
oh yeah.
And it's weird because, like, if you don't care about them, you probably would just be like, I tried to get all of them, and most of it was because I just wanted to do everything in the dungeon anyway. And
yeah, if you
most
don't,
of the things you do
kind of breeze through them.
Fairy. Well, the thing is, you have no way of really knowing. You're like, if I do this puzzle, is it going to give me a stray fairy, or is it going to give me a key that I need to actually get through the dungeon? Like, you don't know until the chest appears and you open it. So,
but they're kind of like they're more out of the way, I guess. Like, you could definitely straight line some of the dungeons, I think, if you weren't.
Yeah, you could.
They're not the greatest dungeons, and I'm a Majora's Mask, apologist.
There's only 4, right?
Yeah, but they change. Like, some of them change based on like the time. Like, there's one where if you played at a certain time, it's like upside down, and you have to play it that way in order to get fairies. Yeah, the stone tower.
Well, you actually do that. That's pretty much part of the sequence of beating it.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But like,
yeah,
it's different at different times.
It's not time based, but yeah, once you get the light arrows, you can go outside and flip it.
Yeah,
and then you can actually get the boss key when you go back and it's upside down.
Yeah, there's certain fairies that you can only get when it's flipped.
But
it's not like it's not super meaty as far as dungeons go. Like the dungeons are pretty well thought out, but I definitely see like where some people complain about them.
How many hours are you in, Sam?
Oh, I didn't really time it that specific. I mean, it's probably, a 20-something hour playthrough.
Okay.
Dude, my playthrough that I played when I was a kid, I have no clue how much time. I spent a lot of time. I 100%ed minus one heart piece. That I could never find.
I know, Sam. That's just such a tragic story. You're gonna have to play that whole game again someday and just kind of figure out what you did wrong.
Yeah, it's something.
Lord.
Just do it on NSO.
I think I'll play I have a couple copies of the 3DS version.
There you go.
So I'll probably play one of those.
Sam, how often do you feel like you were using the guide? Did you have it open the whole time, step by step, or did you only use it when you needed it?
I was mostly using it as a benchmark. Like I pretty much, by the halfway point, I was just looking up every mask and when I should be able to get it.
The masks are the big ones.
Yeah, I mean, when I would get to a dungeon, I would pretty much... I think at the end because I decided I wanted all the stray fairies and I didn't want to miss one. So I think for the last dungeon, I was checking that I didn't miss any stray fairies. And that's probably the worst thing about the stray fairies is it's one of the things that if you have to reset the time loop, if you have to play the Song of Time, you're going to lose them all. So you have to get them all. It's not as much of a problem as I thought it would be. Because it's always a very good point to save your game, play the Song of Time, warp back to the dungeon entrance when you start a dungeon. And I would always play the inverted Song of Time to slow time down. I never ran out of time in a dungeon, I don't think, because I always did that because I was very careful to do that.
Yeah.
I could see if you're a kid who doesn't realize how the game, especially the first dungeon, and you just don't even realize how the game works, and you forget to do that. But that would kind of stink, losing most of your progress because you just run out of time. The time limit, I didn't find was actually that frustrating.
It's not as overbearing as what people put it as.
Yeah. What frustrated me the most was the events that are time specific, where it's oh, I got to do this thing now. And it's, night of day 2, but I'm on morning of day 3 right now. So let me go back to Clocktown, reset, and then play the Song of Double Time 3 times so I can get to the second night again. And it's just there's a lot of that.
At least they gave you the ability to do that and didn't make you play through the first 2 days.
Unless you're doing the couples mask quest because stuff's at very specific times.
Oh yeah, that is.
And you just have to wait.
Can do it all. Yeah, but you could do it all in the one.
Yeah.
As long as you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I want? I want a ROM hack for Majora's Mask where you every time you do it's so stupid. Every time you do the 3 days, it saves what you did, as what Link did, and then when you start it over, you can see your past self doing the things that because that's how what would have really happened if you could actually go back in time. You'd be seeing yourself doing these things, all the things that you did. Yeah, you can obviously you would be able to interact with yourself, but I would want to see the chaos toward the end of the game. Because you start the 3 over and you see every time you started that over, you're starting at the same place and then you run off in 25 different directions. Yeah. I want that. Sam.
That's really what it comes down to is I appreciate it because I think as a follow up to Ocarina of Time as another N64 Zelda game, like it had to do something to set itself apart.
For sure. Yeah. And I don't,
and it did
and
that.
People
And it
talk
owned
about
it.
people talk about
It
how
just,
like
it led to some frustration.
It's not Ocarina of Time 2. It's something that's totally off the wall. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, did we really want exactly the same thing? No, we didn't. We want Link to be fresh and new every time. And what they did was certainly fresh and unique and new and never been done before. But that didn't necessarily like make it great. It fumbled some of that some of the applications, and that's kind of why I'm not the biggest Majora's Mask fan in the world.
I honestly think they were just too close together. Like, I think people weren't even barely coming off the high of Ocarina of Time, and they're like, "Hey, here's the sequel."
I mean, it kind of had to rush out because GameCube was right around the corner. But yeah, they could have let it cook a little longer.
Well, they reused almost like all the assets, so like they hardly had to do, any of that. It was just putting together the time mechanic,
for sure,
the mask mechanics. I mean, it's a totally different game. Don't get me wrong, but as far as the visuals go, like it's all there. It's all the same. It didn't take as much.
And that was actually, I think, because going in, I hadn't even really touched Majora's Mask. I mean, I skipped it because I still hadn't beaten Ocarina of Time when it came out. So,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
I already have an N64 Zelda game, and I haven't beat it yet. So, I don't need this one. I don't need another one just yet. So, I think what kind of surprised me was like, oh yeah, like this feels very, in terms of the core, Link's moveset and just the way everything looks and sounds. It's literally a bunch of reused assets from Ocarina of Time. So
yeah, I was kind of on the opposite, like, of my friend circle that, they all had, I was a late adopter of the N64. Like, I got it for Christmas, and all my friends all had Ocarina of Time. So I had already played like the majority of the game just being over there. And by the time I got my N64, I got the Donkey Kong 64 bundle. Majora's Mask was coming right around the corner. And instead of buying Ocarina of Time, I just waited and I bought Majora's Mask when it came out. So I didn't even own a copy of Ocarina of Time until a little bit later. So I just put all my time into Majora's Masks, and all my buddies skipped it. So like they all waited till like the 3DS version to play the game, and it was like one of my favorite Zelda games.
Yeah. As far as like putting twists on the formula, I mean, it really just it like ran with it. And like even Wind Waker had its own sort of twists on the formula. It didn't go as crazy, but it certainly had its own version of twists. And then we kind of, with Twilight Princess, sort of went back to Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time as the standard. And I'm just wondering, and then Skyward Sword did its own thing. And so I'm just kind of wondering, like, compared to, like, if we lay out all of the 3D Zeldas, where in that list of games does Majora's Mask fall in terms of, like, playability, quality? Like, do you want to go back and play it again? Are you anxious to play something else now that you finished that? Like, does it make you hungry for a different Zelda game? I say that because Breath of the Wild made you hungry for dungeons,
Well, yeah, it's really only just thinking about how Majora's Mask, kind of had that pressure on it to do something a little different, does make me a little bit more excited for Tears of the Kingdom. Because that's in a similar situation where it is a follow-up game, actually a direct sequel, even. Mm-hmm. Majora's Mask is weird because of the time travel in Ocarina of Time, but it is a direct sequel and built on the same engine, on the same system, where, they're going to do something different, I think, with we still don't really know that much about Tears of the Kingdom. So
No.
We don't know anything.
it'll be interesting to see, like, okay, is this going to be, wildly different the way Majora's Mask was?
Yeah.
Instead of just being, Breath of the Wild 1.5.
Right.
Go with it. Do something crazy. Do something crazy again. And, if it works out, awesome. And even if it has some rough around the edges things that are a little clumsy, like, it's still interesting, if nothing else.
For sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, Majora's Mask isn't just like the time mechanic. Like, a lot of people get hung up on the time mechanic, but like the masks are all like functionally different. Like, there's all kinds of cool things that you can do with the masks. Like, some of them are transformations into different things. Like,
I will say I was a little
bunny hat.
I was a little disappointed in the total grand scheme of masks, especially the ones I was getting at the end. They didn't seem to do anything. It's like, talk to this guy wearing it. He gives you a piece of heart. That's all it does.
Yeah, some of them are not so great, but I mean, there's definitely some cool ones. Like I said, you get the bunny rabbit hood, like which moves to Smash Brothers. That's where that comes from.
Yeah. I mean, it was in Ocarina of Time. It just didn't have an effect. It was just made you have bunny ears. That's all it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of invalidates the need for Epona, really. You get it much earlier if you
can, yeah. And that's another
fences with it.
Yeah, you can't jump the fences without Epona.
But you can move faster and turn more easily as well.
Yeah, it just did a whole lot of different things, and it wasn't afraid to be different, and that's what I liked about it. It wasn't just Ocarina of Time 2. Like, they're easily two totally different games.
Yeah, yeah, and it kind of needed to be, and I'm glad that it was. And that's the thing is, like, I have to go back and say to myself, like, I don't enjoy like playing it. Maybe I will with the guide, but I have to respect it. I have to respect what they were doing.
That's what it comes down to me too, is like, I think when you boil it down to the actual gameplay, I think it might be one of the weakest of the 3D Zeldas.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also one of the weirdest, and it has some of the like most involved of the side quests as well. It kind of makes up for the only 4 dungeons, I think, with some of those. I mean, how many other Zelda games have you fighting off UFOs?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty
great. It's worth more than the sum of its parts. Definitely. It's an experience. Awesome. Sam, thanks for your topic this week. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to jump right onto our community couch, where we've got some stuff to talk about thanks to you, our community, and our listeners. So we'll be right back. Okie dokie, we're back. We're on the community couch. We're hanging out. We're hanging out with you guys who sent us some questions and some discussion topics. And we're going to hit these, and then we're going to say goodnight, because this is the last segment of the episode. What did you guys think of the new format? Didn't really feel that new, as far as I'm concerned. It just kind of felt like we rearranged some things. But I think the behind the scenes is different, because we're each coming up with topics all the time now. So I feel like there's a high potential for us to have actual interesting things to say in every episode. So last season, there was a lot of like last minute, like that night, like, what are we talking about? I don't know. And then like we ended the season with no topic. So I'm trying to avoid that, is what I'm trying to say. But let's talk to our community here. We've got Oops, who brings us the question. He says, with the rise of the limited release physical game companies doing the PS4 and Switch lifespan, do you guys think once these systems become retro, those will be the rarest games, or will it still just be JRPGs? So he's talking about limited physical release game companies like Limited Run, Super Rare, making physical games of games that wouldn't have gotten physical copies anyway. Are those going to continue to climb in price, or what? What do we think about that?
I think there's a decent case for it, but the flip side of that, I guess, is that the games that usually become really high price are the ones that sort of keep a low profile until they stop being sold. You know?
Yeah.
It's like the game that everybody ignored when it came out, and then
artificially
later they find out it's actually really good, but then there are no new copies being made, so everybody's buying old copies. And
I guess
in the case of these limited copies, that could still be the case, because it could be that everybody buys them digital because they usually come out digital first. But it's also the case that like all the collectors, like they know that game's a big deal by the time it actually gets the physical release. Like the game has to prove itself to even get the physical now.
Right.
In these cases. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's kind of a known quantity, something like Into the Breach. Like, I don't know, is that going to be a super sought after game, or is it, like all the collectors got their copy? Because that's why I say maybe not, because like Limited Run is selling to collectors.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that, how many collectors are not going to have their copy that want one, 10 years.
I think that any games that were sold after the business model change with open pre-orders, I think those games won't be as hard to find, because there's going to, could be easily 5 to 10 times more copies.
Everybody who wanted one got one because of the open pre-orders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, like the model they had before, where they just, hey, we're going to print 3,000 of these games, and if you want one, you have to get in line and buy one. If not, they're gone. Those games are probably going to be pretty valuable one day, just because.
And we also don't know, the end of life plan for the Switch eShop either. With the Switch being such a popular system, it could be that, whatever succeeds it will be backwards compatible, and they may, the way they did with the Wii to the Wii U, carry over much of the eShop in some way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which could at least extend the life on, those digital games. Because I think the assumption here is that when the digital sale is no longer available, the demand is going to be really high versus the very low supply of physical games.
Depending on the game.
Don't know how that's going to look.
Depending on the game. And if something's really that popular, it's going to get re-released on the next console too, and you'll have to buy it digitally again. But stuff that doesn't do that, for sure.
And to kind of hit the last bit of his question there, I don't think we have that problem with JRPGs anymore, and I kind of talked a little bit about this in the Discord. Like Super Nintendo era JRPGs, they were usually more valuable because they originally cost more money and less people bought them. And JRPG as a genre as a whole is more niche.
And a lot of people didn't get into them until Final Fantasy VII, by which point all the Super Nintendo ones were retro.
Right.
Because if you look at like Xbox, even the last generation or the generation before that, the RPGs are not really that expensive. Like you can get a hold of.
Nobody's shelling out $100 for Final Fantasy 13.
No, they're all like bargain bin stuff now.
That's a good point. Actually, I didn't think about when I saw this question come up about the RPGs. I was like, I don't know. They still
there's
niche?
Some like Xenoblade is one, but like there's unique situation with that.
And it's kind of floating right now. Like The Wii version like used to be a lot more expensive, and it's really fallen. Like I think it's only like 30 to $40 complete in box. It used to be like almost $100 game at one point.
Yeah.
It's because they've re-released it. And right now everything is riding the price high of the new game coming out. So everybody's scrambling. They want to play get the collector's edition. Like I think my Xenoblade Chronicles 2 collector's edition is now like almost $300. And it's because everybody is like looking back down. They're like, man, I wish I would have bought that. And the new game's out and I'm thinking about it. So everyone's paying an outrageous amount of money for it. Even the definitive edition of 1, that game, I bought it and it like tanked value wise. And now it's back up like more than what I paid for it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess it's just time will tell.
Trends drive a lot of things too. So
good. Flighty has a question for us. He says, are visual novels video games? And will there ever be a podcast episode dedicated to them? I mean, maybe,
Sure,
but
video games.
Telltale.
I'm not going to say they don't count as video games.
No, especially like the modern
you can
term.
say that.
If you take the dictionary definition of a video game, then probably not. But like the modern term video game applies to like so much stuff that's not a game. So yeah, it's a video game.
Well, I mean, you can say that and still admit that like there's a very little gameplay. Like,
sure.
Right. There's relatively little interaction, but I mean that even varies amongst the genre from what little I know about it.
Yeah, some have more than others.
You have stuff like Professor Layton that throws puzzles in there too.
Yeah, or right? Phoenix Wright is basically a visual novel.
Yeah, with like pixel hunting.
I've brought this up before, and I think it's a very good definition that resonated with me, and it's from Sid Meier's book. It's called Sid Meier's Memoir with an exclamation point, just like Sid Meier's Pirates or Sid Meier's Civilization. And he defines a game as a series of interesting decisions. And
yes,
I think that's a good definition because it has a lot of latitude in all the different shapes that can take, and it encompasses a lot of different genres. In something like a visual novel, you have interesting decisions. Now, they're not really strategic decisions per se, but they are interesting because you're like, I want to know what would happen if I chose this versus that.
Yeah, that's really good.
And so you make your choice and you see what happens, right? You see how the story unfolds because of that choice. It doesn't have to be, a competitive sort of thing per se.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I mean, like, yeah, like a lot of visual novels have like a bad ending or whatever, which you might want to avoid. But I think the way a lot of people play them, they still want to see the bad ending because they just want to see all.
They want to see all the endings. Yeah.
Right. So they want to see the bad ending too, and they just want to, kind of explore those decisions because they make the story interesting. So
for sure,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's still player input that affects what happens in the game. So
are any of you guys grabbing the new Monkey Island?
I'm not. I just wouldn't play it, but I know there are people that are excited about it. That's not a visual novel though. That's a point and click adventure, isn't it?
I think those genres are kind of related.
They're kind of blended now. Yeah.
The question, will there ever be a podcast episode dedicated to them? It kind of depends on who the guest is, because I don't have enough content or backlog to be able I mean, it's not a genre I prefer. I'm totally open to it.
They don't count as video games just because I don't like them, but
I'm totally open to it. If somebody wants to come on and talk for an hour about visual novels, let's do it. We've got a question. Our last but not least is from Chris HL94, who says, question for the show. I'm still really enjoying the NES and SNES games on NSO, and also like the Sega Genesis and N64 games on the expansion pass. Are you guys still playing these games? And what are you spending most of your time on?
I've been playing mostly whenever it's for the show. So we're doing Retro Rewind. That's where I'm playing my games at.
I mean, I just finished Majora's Mask, so Actually, I will say overall, I'm surprised I've gotten more mileage than I thought I would out of the N64. Because the N64 is not. I don't have quite as much nostalgia as others do, even as other people my age. That's like, I mean, that's like the first console I remember actually getting, but it just kind of fell to the background for me, just because of where my preferences are and styles of games and stuff. But I had a lot of fun with Majora's Mask, with F-Zero X. Just there's a handful of these like staple N64 games that I'd never played that I wound up playing through like the whole game and really liking it. So
We're about to get some Mario parties.
Yeah. I'll have to do some online stuff.
That's another one. I never had Mario Party 2. I had 1 and 3. I never had 2, so I should check that out.
There you go. Get your cowboy hat on.
I actually haven't fired it up very much, partially because I own most of what I want to play on those anyway, but I will dabble in stuff that I've never played before, just for funsies, but it's not something I go back to regularly. Part of that is just lack of time to play.
Yeah,
I have a weird thing with the N64 one where I feel like there's a significant amount of latency, even in handheld mode. And I'm trying to figure that out because nobody else seems to notice it or care. But I'm like, I can't play Star Fox 64 on this thing because it feels like I'm a slug. So I don't know if that's a me thing.
And that's long been, why I try to champion the like NSO apps. There's certainly room for improvement. There's certainly valid criticism, but particularly when people are, criticizing it for the choice of games on there.
There's so many games now.
Well, number one, there's just other realities you have to accept about this is how licensing works. You can't just put whatever you want. But
right.
I think the greatest strength of this model is getting people to try something they don't know about already.
That's what I go to, yeah, for sure.
Because it is a package deal. Because you're not trying to sell somebody on, a game like Jelly Boy for the SNES. That, if you're an American, you've literally never heard of it because it didn't come out here. But now that it's there, and it's included, I don't have to, it's not like it just showed up on the eShop on the Wii and they're asking me to pay $8 for this game I've never heard of. It's like, oh, here's a new game on NSO. Let's see what this is.
Give it a shot.
It cost me literally nothing additional to what I've already paid to try this out. And I played Jelly Boy and I thought it was actually pretty fun. So, it's stuff like that I think is really the strong suit. It is.
We got to know Eliminator Boat Duel.
Yeah, Eliminator Boat Duel.
Eliminator Boat Duel, man. We just
Where would we be without Eliminator Boat Duel?
We probably would be
very
dead.
Boring life.
Yeah, just bad.
Bad
life.
Boats.
Oh, we're all hoping for Plock to show up, run just one of those random games. It's like, here's a stupid game nobody likes, and then like the one community on Earth that cares about it has a party. Like that's what it's going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Plocktober, everyone. This is going to be the last episode of our show in Plocktoberfest. So I hope everyone enjoyed the meme contest. Congrats to Galaxy Wolf for the win with his Doc Plock meme. Totally awesome. Loved it. Can't wait to see what happens next year as well. And if you want to jump into our community and like do weird fun stuff like that, I can tell you how to do that in this exit text that I'm about to read. And that says, thanks for listening to the RetroLogic podcast. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, check me out on Twitter and Instagram at RetroLogic Games. You're also welcome to jump into our friendly and 100% non-toxic Discord community. The link to that is in my Twitter bio, which is at RetroLogic Games. And you can also find everything on our website, which is retrologic.games. That's our show, guys. And I hope you like the new format, newish. And we will see you in the community for naming the robot. And then we will also just see you in a couple weeks for a new episode. So peace out.
Bye now.
what about the Danverse?
What about the Danverse is a really good question. We will have a fresh Danverse episode for you next week. I already have the script. I just couldn't squeeze it in today, but there is more Danverse coming. As long as Ambassador's writing the scripts, I'm reading them. So rest assured.
We might need to put out some casting calls for this one.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, so
he's got a list of characters at the beginning.
Oh, that's helpful. Yes, Ambassador. Let's just love it. Thank you. All right. Well, on that note, we'll see you guys next week. What the heck? Anybody have to go to the bathroom?
Nope. No tinkling for me.
I have to cough, which is really freaking annoying. I'm trying to coax that out away. Should probably have water. People say that's a good thing to drink. I beg to differ. I drink anything but water.
No, it's the best Pokemon type, as decided.
That's
Arizona tea.
In our Discord.
It's not true. By majority vote, which is a laugh.
Hey, we were only one away.
Do what?
Nobody likes fire.
It's just so obvious. You know? Charizard. Ooh.
I'm kind of surprised Fire didn't get more votes. Especially if you're looking at like the starters, there are just usually not very many fire types like in the game.
That's true.
Like,
yeah.
There's usually plenty of water and grass types.
Yeah.
But
And I do typically like the look and design of the fire types better. Like I'm a Fuecoco guy for Ruby Sapphire all the way. The cat does
like the
nothing.
Grass cat?
No, does nothing for me.
it's just a green cat.
I don't like it. Yeah.
Come on.
There's a million cat Pokemon. And none of them are
Yeah,
good.
what about the duck?
I do like the duck. However, I like little dinosaurs better than ducks. That's just a personal choice. Fuecoco appears to be a nice chompy dude. I want to see where that goes in the evolutionary line.
Yeah, I mean Quaxley looks pretty much just like a little miniature Donald Duck.
Yeah, I mean he looks a lot like
It's weird because there's already been several ducks.
well, there's one that
crocodiles.
There's
and
cats.
cats.
there's ducklet.
It does kind of just feel like
There's even been another cat starter. Like
Yeah,
Litten is just the red cat.
there's been another crocodile starter too.
Well, and
Yep.
ducklet is already the blue duck. Like, why do we need another blue duck? Just not.
I mean, really, all of it's a downgrade from Psyduck. Psyduck, great.
Yeah, for sure. We
Golduck.
can all agree on that.